Should you be punished for what you did or for the results of what you did? I thought we could have a little philosophical discussion about the law, but it does tie into some sort of practical things that Dan's been talking about on his channel. But this is an issue that actually has been a sort of major debate in the law, and it's whether we punish for what we call culpability or for consequences. To give you sort of like some context for that, imagine you're driving along, and you just stop paying attention for a moment, you get distracted, or you just drift off, and you suddenly remember, ooh, you come back and you drive on, nothing's happened. Okay, phew, luckily, everything's fine. But say a police officer stops you, sees you do that. What are you looking at? £80 fine, 3 points, careless driving. But what if you do that, and while you're looking the other way, a hiker steps down the road and you hit them? Should you be punished more severely because somebody's been injured? Well, one argument is, well, yes, you should. But the counter argument is, well, why? What is the difference? We punish people for what they do, So why should it make any difference as to what the consequences were? And this is something, it's really strange, this, because generally speaking, especially, in England, we used to just punish on culpability. And there's a rather weird thing. I've mentioned before that, how they had to introduce death by, well, they called it reckless driving back then, because people wouldn't convict of manslaughter. But there was no such offence as death by careless driving. And here's the thing, if you did run somebody over while you were carelessly driving, whatever the consequences, you were prosecuted for careless driving, but the prosecution weren't supposed to mention that somebody had been injured or killed, because that might prejudice the bench. I mean, that's changed now. We actually do have an offence of death by careless driving, because people say, well, hang on a second, it's not right. The pendulum has shifted from oh, there but for the grace of God go I. We all we all fall below the standards of the perfect driver. So I wouldn't want to be convicted for that. But it's shifted now to, well, actually, no, maybe you should just pay attention. You're driving something like tons of fast-moving metal. So, yeah, we'll put a bit of a, emphasis on you. But like I said, this is a big debate. And what we do is, generally speaking, we look at the culpability aspect rather than the consequences. But we have this idea that you will be responsible for any consequences that are, sort of like the logical, foreseeable potential consequences of your action. I mean, say for instance, there's a case where somebody threw a lump of concrete off a bridge and it killed somebody, and they were convicted of murder because they said, after an appeal, because they said, well, no, because you drop concrete on somebody, regardless of what you think might happen, you are intending, in the legal sense, to at least commit serious harm. So yeah, you should be punished, for that. But sometimes, it is a situation where they say, well, actually, nobody could have foreseen those consequences, so we'll just penalise you for what you did. I mean, it gets quite controversial in the US, where different states have different views. But especially in death penalty states, where you get these states that execute people who were minors at the time, or weren't mentally competent. But the argument is, well, no, we just look at the consequences, and we say that the death penalty should be applicable in cases of murder, and we're not really bothered about what your mental state was. I mean, like I say, this crops up. It's all very weird. This sort of mens rea element, But I'll to lighten the mood, I'll end you on this one, because it's all about attempts and should you be penalised for an attempted crime? Because at the end of the day, if it's an attempt and you fail, well, no harm done, But to quote Sideshow Bob, attempted murder, do they award a Nobel Prize for attempted chemistry? There you go. If you found that vaguely useful. And like I say, it'll tie in, because Dan was talking about sort of suspended sentences and things in that other video. So, go watch that one for some proper legal discussion. But yeah, if you did like this, please consider clicking the like button, possibly subscribing and sharing.